Thank you for downloading the PR Week, PR Week's weekly podcast. For more podcasts as well as breaking news, visit prweek.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the PR Week. I'm Frank Washcook. I'm the news editor at PR Week, and our special guest this week is Matt Rizzetta of N6A Agency. How are you?
Frank, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you in the office.
I'll see you too.
The new office for the first time.
That's right, second day.
And I was down at your, and you told me you're in the process of moving offices,
So second day in our new office, 50 Green Street in Soho.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You must be happy about the move?
Yep, I'm relieved. It's over. And we signed a 5-year lease, and I've been called a liar the last 4 times, but this time I'm 100% staying in this lease for 5 years. Can't do it again.
We will keep tabs on you. All right, Allison Kansky also here. She, of course, is our healthcare and public affairs reporter. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you.
All right. So for those people that aren't familiar with
Sure.
your firm, tell us a little bit about where it got its name,
Sure.
how long you've been in business, and what you're up to now.
Sure. So N6A, short for N6A Agency. We are headquartered in New York City, new office in Green Street in Soho. We also just opened an office in Toronto recently as well. We have about 50 employees spread across our 2 offices. It's our 8th year in business, Frank. We're working with about 60 clients now, spread across 30 some odd industries. So we're really diversified in terms of the types of clients that we work with. And we really live on the earned side of the media line. So anything to do with publicity, media relations, earned awards and speaking programs, analyst relations, crisis communications, anything that's on the earned side of the media line is what clients hire us for.
Where does the name come from? Because I have to tell you, when first time in a while where I got pitched something by your firm, I assumed you were in Williamsburg just because of the way the streets are named over there, and that's not the case.
Everybody thinks we're based in Williamsburg.
Right.
That's it. So it's actually after North 6th Street, but it's not the Williamsburg North 6th Street. It's the one in Mount Vernon, right on the border of the Bronx.
See, that's us clearing up misconceptions.
So we, it's funny, Frank, when I first started the agency, and we're in our 8th year of business, so this is going back 8 years ago, I was a first-time entrepreneur, no entrepreneurial experience at all, didn't have many connections, and I was just trying to get advice from people that had made it in services businesses, PR, law, marketing services, CPA firms, whatever it was. And like the first piece of advice I got was literally name the firm after yourself, because when you're just starting out and you're trying to get clients, they really see the business as the principal. And you look at some of the most powerful firms today, now it's several generations removed, but they were named after their founding fathers or mothers.
Sure.
So of course, being like a stubborn kid from New York, I went against the grain. And the first conscious decision I made was not to name it after myself. I named it N6A Agency after the street that my grandparents immigrated to when they came here from Italy.
So a little bit of inspiration too, I guess. Right?
Yeah, it's a good story. I thought the business, I was really, I wanted the business to be about more than just myself. I wanted it to be about a story and a set of values that not just myself, but everyone that was going to be a part of this journey, clients, staff, vendors, really got behind, and that's why we named it after them.
All right, so you mentioned before that you guys really focus on the earned side of things.
Yep.
What do you mean by that?
So we'll touch anything that needs to be, any result that needs to be earned in the media. So publicity, media relations. Obviously, we have a team of really hardworking pitchers, that work with clients to get them in the press, whether it's national press, trade press, business press, consumer press. If it's Allison's case, we'll try to get in her health and wellness column if we can convince her to write about our clients. Awards and speaking opportunities. A lot of clients nowadays are hiring us because they want awards for their executives or their entrepreneurs, or awards for them as a business, best places to work type awards, and those sort of accolades. Speaking opportunities, which now have been consolidated. The world of earned speaking opportunities is much more limited than it was even when I first started N6A. It's very difficult to secure speaking opportunities for clients that don't have a price tag attached to them. So that's something that our staff really specializes in and has nurtured relationships with a lot of the decision makers to make those kind of results happen. I'll get pulled in along with our senior management team for crisis communications projects on a case-by-case basis. We'll do analyst relations, anything that essentially doesn't have a price tag on it, that has a media outcome is something our agency will specialize in.
Mm-hmm. Now that's interesting because I think a lot of firms are always playing up their integrated chops.
Yep.
It's rare when you run into a firm that does not have integrated in the second line of the company about its name. So you're taking a bit of the opposite approach. Fair to say?
Yeah, we know. I mean, we know our roots. We know what we're good at. It's part of the grind and the struggle, right? Mm-hmm. We like to earn things, and I think it fits nicely into our story. We're not an agency, at least right now, that's doing a whole lot in terms of paid activations. We'll see what the future holds, but for now, like that earned domain is really what we like to own.
Mm-hmm. Media is changing so quickly.
Yep.
What do you make of it in 2017 right now? Like, when you look at the media world in general? Of course, it's a very broad question. I mean, are there new hot outlets that your clients are suddenly saying, we want to be in Axios, we want to be in... What are you hearing about?
Axios is actually a great example of one that has... It's funny because we'll get... When we do a kickoff session with any new client, we'll put together a little wish list of key media they want to be in. And it's funny to kind of see how that list changes in time. And the Cheddar TVs of the world and the Axioses of the world. Mashable was this way about a decade ago or so, where they're afterthoughts and they're kind of laughed at when you first introduce them to clients. And then all of a sudden you pick your head up and they're at the top of the list. Axios is a good example of one that really did that quickly too.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about Axios and Cheddar, though, those are very, very different audiences, though, in a lot of ways. So what's an example of a firm that what's an example of a client that might want to reach the Cheddar audience? What do you see as it being good for, so to speak?
You're talking about, in the case of Cheddar, a lot of our clients who are looking at a millennial demographic, ones that are more advanced and embracing, online video, are the ones that tend to tend to have Cheddar toward the top of their wish list. Axios is a good example of kind of the quick hitting snippets, this sort of real time news reporting in today's day and age, in the Gen 3.0, snippet reporting. So a lot of clients that want quick hits, they have long stories that they want to be able to be communicated in short form. Axios usually tends to make it to the top of those clients' list.
I'd imagine that is a tough place to land the client, though, considering how short their stories are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different pitch approach. There's a completely different, that's the interesting thing too, Frank, nowadays, is that the way we deal with the media is so nuanced, and it's not just nuanced at a publication level. It's nuanced at a reporter level. And I'm sure you guys, both working for PR Week, can appreciate this. It's not, forget about it being a one-size-fits-all approach, which doesn't even apply to PR Week. A one-size-fits-all approach doesn't apply to Frank and Allison. Like, we need to know Allison's beat and what she's writing about in the health and wellness space, just like we need to do on your beat. And Axios and Cheddar, to in their own way, are very similar in terms of customization according to the reporter.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. Okay, tell us about what industries you focus on in terms of your clients.
Sure. It would probably be easier for me to tell you which industry we don't focus on.
Fair enough. Go ahead.
I mean, we're in probably about 30 different industries right now.
Okay.
You name it. Healthcare, energy, consumer, tech. Our roots, when I started the agency, were technology-based. Our first batch of clients for the first 6 or 9 months were just exclusively B2B tech companies. So that still remains very much in our roots and in our DNA. Cannabis, we launched our Cannabis Group officially earlier this year. That's obviously a really exciting launch for the agency. We do a lot of work in the professional services space with financial services companies, banks, law firms, branding and marketing firms actually hire us, which is pretty funny because we kind of live at the extension of, as an extension.
That's interesting. Okay.
We're doing a little bit of work in energy, hospitality, travel, anything outside of celebrity and outside of the EDU space. Chances are we either have a client there.
EDU is education? Or?
Yeah, higher ed, yeah.
Okay.
Or, or we have a case study over the past couple
So
years.
you avoid the celebrity space?
Yeah, for the time being. Yeah.
Too many headaches?
It's funny, when I started N6A, or before I started N6A, my aspirations after I got out of school were to become a sports agent. And that gave me a little taste of the celebrity kind of individual management world. And it was something that I didn't have the greatest of experiences with. And I intentionally, at least to this point, we do work with individuals. We work with individuals in a corporate and a business setting. We work with a lot of executives that are transitioning from one corporate position to another, and they need to build their personal brand. So we do have a whole entire, personal brand team, but when it comes to celebrity, that's something we haven't dabbled in.
Okay. So, Allison, earlier this year, you wrote about one specific new practice, of course I'm thinking of.
What is that? What is that? Cannabis?
I'm wondering if you're being forgetful to push this forward. But anyway, I thought this was a fascinating thing when you guys pitched us because while I'm sure a lot of firms work with cannabis or cannabis-related clients, I don't know how many of them actually have a specific practice. Yeah. So just maybe like on a nuts and bolts level, why launch a practice?
Yeah. I thought we were going to talk about cybersecurity practice.
We can get into that because that is a big story considering the past 2 weeks. And of course that happened at Cannes.
That's right.
During Cannes week as well. But weed first.
Yeah, weed first. So it's funny, we just to take you guys back in time, a few years ago, we were about 4 or 5 years old as a business. We had scaled N6A to a comfortable point, where we could afford to take a little bit of a risk or a gamble, roll the dice on an industry or two. We had zero experience in cannabis at the time. I'll be the first one to admit. We probably represented clients at that time in about 15 to 20 different industries. Mm-hmm. Cannabis, of course, was not one of them. We were approached by a client, a company called Poseidon Asset Management, which was a VC firm investing in companies in the legal cannabis space. And they had worked with specialist cannabis PR firms out of Boulder and out of California, who really knew the cannabis trades very well. And they called me up through we met through a mutual client connection that we both had. And they called me up and said, Matt, we're looking to get out of the trades and really build our brand in the mainstream media. They were really ahead of the curve at the time. This is late 2014, which might not seem like a long time ago, but in cannabis terms, that's an eternity ago. And they wanted to get out of the trades and establish their brand on a mainstream media level. And they saw us as an agency, young, energetic agency, well-connected in New York, had a really good track record with working with the national media. And they said, would you work with us? And, in full transparency, I told them, I said, sure, but we have zero experience working with cannabis clients. I said, don't worry about it. Not important to us. It's more important to us that you're well-connected with the mainstream media, the national media. As long as you have that, you'll figure out cannabis second. Mm-hmm. And we took him on as a client. It was very much an experimental, no pun intended, but it was very experimental.
Beat me to the joke there.
And that was our first foray in our journey, how the cannabis journey began. And it was really a match made in heaven. We brought to them the mainstream media results and credibility that they were looking for. They brought to us the cannabis connections and education that we needed and lacked at that time. We spent a lot of time after that engagement really just learning about the space, investing in cannabis, making sure that we were really committing to building out our own domain knowledge in cannabis. And then here we are a few years later. We had invested a lot in the space, built a really nice network and Rolodex of clients and case studies. And we decided to make it a formal division as of January 2017, and now we have a formal group.
Now, did you hesitate at all, considering, there are risks. It's not legal everywhere. It's only legal in a few places. And it is kind of a niche space, right? Mm-hmm. So, did you have any hesitation when you were deciding to go forward on that?
Not really, Frank, because the strategy, at least way back at the beginning, as we were really committing to building this out, was that we were going to represent ancillary brands that didn't touch the plant in cannabis. So our body of work in cannabis for the first year or so was really representing clients that didn't touch the plant. So technology companies, agriculture companies, companies in the IT space, data companies. And so it wasn't as volatile and as risky as it would have been at that time if we went right into the plant. And now obviously our Cannabis Group, has evolved and expanded, and now we represent clients across all walks of cannabis that do and don't touch the plant. We represent LPs. We represent licensed products. We represent tech companies. We represent HR companies. You name it. But it all started with a focus on really representing clients that were in the ancillary services space within cannabis. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. It's almost like how a smartphone creates the app economy.
That's right.
You have all of this blossoming.
Exactly.
No pun intended.
And also we knew the ancillary spaces, the ancillary industries very well, because that was what we built our business on. So it was a lot easier for us in 2014 or 2015 to take on a technology cannabis company or an IT cannabis company, because we knew those industries. And then in time, by osmosis, we obviously learned the cannabis domain really well.
Mm-hmm. So what I was going to say is just a quick quiz of sorts. How many states is it legal in at this point?
Well, on a commercial side or on a medicinal side?
Yeah, I was going to say commercial side.
38.
38, yeah. Really? Okay, and so medicinally, how many states?
No, 38 medicinally.
38 medicinally, and how many on a consumer level?
I think we're up to 14 now.
14.
Yeah.
So it's really a bigger market then.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we talked about our expansion into Canada, our opening of the Canadian branch out in Toronto. Canada just announced nationwide legalization, which will kick into effect January 2018. Okay. So now, you talked about diversification and, really eliminating some of the risk. Now we're in a position where we represent clients not just in the U.S., but internationally as well. Canada, one of our clients out of Canada, Marican, also now operates in Germany. So it's put our hands not just in the United States market, but in cannabis on an international level too.
Really interesting stuff. You mentioned a bunch of different kind of companies that are cannabis related, but again, don't touch the plant is the way that you put it. What's one that either pitched you or you started looking at the business model and you were shocked that you had no idea this even existed?
Within cannabis?
Yeah.
I'll tell you I'll give you a good example of a client that we just started speaking to through one of our connections in our cannabis portfolio. They're basically building, I'll hold on mentioning the name just because there's NDAs and all that involved, but they're basically looking to build the equivalent of an Eventbrite for the cannabis industry and become the go-to event platform for cannabis. We've met clients that are trying to transform the bud tender space, which is the cannabis equivalent of bartenders, of course. So those have been pretty interesting.
It's a very punny space, isn't it?
It is, but
lots of puns.
The interesting thing about that, Frank, is that when we first started, it was there was a lot of puns and it was cute and gimmicky, but as a lot of these brands now are trying to become, mainstream household brands, you start to see a lot of the puns go by the wayside, and they're really looking to elevate their messaging to something that you would see a lot of mainstream household consumer brands position themselves as.
Okay, interesting stuff. Really interesting industry. Is it even fair to call it one industry at this point? It seems like many.
No, it's so diversified.
Yeah. So you mentioned you also have a bunch of IT security clients.
Yep.
What's happening in that space right now? Because that's again also a very booming.
I'll tell you,
area.
Between cannabis and cybersecurity, there's never a dull moment.
No, I can imagine.
Dealing with the media. So yeah, we don't have. Unlike in the cannabis space where we have a formal dedicated group just for legal cannabis companies, we don't have a formal dedicated cybersecurity group, but we have a practice right now that includes about 7 or 8 portfolio companies in cybersecurity, runs the gamut. We work with Security Scorecard, which is a phenomenal cybersecurity ratings company. We work with Big ID, which is a privacy company. We work with SoCure in the identity verification space. We work with One World Identity, which is also an identification verification company. So, we've really we work with data privacy companies. We work with Hyper, which is a biometrics company. Biometrics is a really interesting space to be in right now. So it's cool because anytime, from a newsjacking thought leadership standpoint, you're hearing about breaches on a daily basis. So it's cool for us because our team gets to swoop in on those stories and feast on them. Yeah,
that was my next question, was when you have a cyber attack like last week where you have all of these major companies like WPP and Reckitt Benckiser and FedEx affected by a major cyber attack like that. What does that mean for a firm like yours that has clients that work in the space? What's the first thing you do?
Well, the first thing we do is you try to. It's obviously difficult to preempt those stories because you don't know about them until they happen. But it's all about real-time response. Chances are if there's a breach or there's a hack or there's some kind of a data breach or some kind of data has been compromised at a mainstream level that's of interest to the mainstream audience, mainstream media, we have a client that can talk about it and that can educate the public, whether it's business owners, whether it's employees that have been impacted by this hack, on what to do, how to prevent this going forward. So the first thing we'll do is it's all about just real-time response, understanding exactly what happened as the news story breaks, identifying the right reporter. In most cases, we have relationships with them already, and then figuring out a way to carve out a space for our clients as a thought leader in their story.
Interesting stuff. We also touched briefly on Cannes, which also happened last week. You've been to Cannes, but not this year.
That's right.
What's it like following it from afar?
I'll tell you, we're just so busy out of New York and Toronto, servicing our clients that had a physical presence at Cannes. Like, I frankly, I didn't even have a chance to really follow a lot of the trends coming out to Cannes because we were just so busy coordinating logistics. Which reporter do they need to meet with at what time?
Okay.
Who's giving a speech? Who's giving a speech and on what stage at what time? So, my life and my team at N6A's life during Cannes was just consumed with, coordinating logistics with our clients who had a presence there.
What did you think about the campaigns that won big? Fearless Girl, you being a New Yorker, I'm betting you're very familiar with.
Bullish, yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I like it. I think it's very innovative. I think it's something I hadn't seen before. And I think that, we talked offline before about Cannes getting a good amount of coverage from the media, but certainly not not the national exposure that other events get yet, certainly like a South by, for example.
Right.
So that campaign in particular, I think that deserves and merits national attention. I'm curious to see how the media covers it going forward.
Well, it's interesting in that it got, I don't want to say it got mixed reviews because it was more positive than that. But there was skepticism in the general media when it came out about whether this was a legitimate real campaign or whether it was a quote-unquote stunt by a financial company.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are questions when you have a company like State Street that's behind it, those questions are going to happen. I think that a lot of people, the judges at Cannes at least, obviously liked it when you look at the list of Grand Prix it won and all of that. I think it was another year of campaigns that had a purpose doing well. It'd be interesting to see what happens next year. I mean, it's all eyes on Cannes at this point, considering the Publicis decision to not go in next year. So, next year is going to be a very closely watched year.
Yeah, you going to go next year?
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. If Steve was here, maybe he could give you an answer to that. He's taking a week off from the podcast. So I'll let you ask him that. Awesome. Do you think you're going to go next year?
It depends on client demand and what we got. This year we were dealing with opening our new New York office. We're dealing with the Toronto office. We're looking at some other strategic stuff. So I had to be by the home base. But next year we'll see.
Interesting stuff. Listen, Matt, thanks for joining us this week
on
the PR Week podcast. Allison, thanks as always.
Allison, thanks a million, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Frank, thanks very much.